Hello everyone, it's Jen from Old Tinkerer Studios, and welcome to part 3 of Illustrator CC Basics. In this tutorial, I'll be teaching you how to create and edit layers within Illustrator. So let's begin by looking at the Layers panel. Go to the right side of the workspace and open the Layers panel. If you do not see this icon, you can always go to Window and check Layers. When you create a new document, Illustrator will create a brand new layer called Layer 1. Inside the Layer panel, you see several options at the bottom. You see on the left the Search option, which allows you to find a specific object. Next to that, you see the icon where you can make and release clipping masks. Next is the Create New Sublayer button, which allows you to make a sublayer within your layers. Then you have the Create New Layer button, and finally you have the trash can for deleting the selections. In Illustrator, there are two kinds of layers: regular layers and sublayers. Sublayers are layers that are nested inside the regular layers. For example, if I draw a square on the artboard, you will see now under Layer 1, if I twirl it open, you will see a sublayer entitled Rectangle. Within the Layers panel, you have the ability to control the visibility of any layer or sublayer. All you need to do is simply click on the eyeball to turn the visibility of the layer or sublayer off. You can also lock layers and sublayers by clicking next to the eyeball and turning on the lock. I'll show you those when we get a little bit further into the tutorial. The circle to the right of the layer name allows you to target a specific object or layer and then move it to another layer. So for example, if I use the Make New Layer icon at the bottom and make a layer 2, I can then target the rectangle by making sure that I click in this little circle, and when you do, you'll notice that it becomes two circles, and then moving this blue square up to the new layer. Simply hold it, drag up to the second layer, and release. Now let's look at the Layer panel drop down in the upper right hand corner. Under this drop down menu, we have several options. You can create a new layer or sublayer. You can duplicate the layer that you're on or delete the layer. You also have options for that layer. You can make a clipping mask, you can enter or exit isolation mode, you can locate objects, you can merge selected objects, flatten your artwork, or collect it all into a new layer. You can release your layers, you can reverse the order, you can make the layer into a template, you can hide the others, you can outline others, lock others, you can paste remembers layer, and you also have your panels option. Now that we've explored the Layers panel, let's learn how to use it. I'm going to include this graphic as an AI file. You'll find the link below to where you can go download it. So if I open up the Layers panel, you'll see that I have a layer titled Layer 1, which is where this entire graphic currently resides. But let's say I want to break this graphic into 3 separate layers. First thing I need to do is add 2 more layers. So go down here to the bottom of the panel and click on your Create New Layer twice. Now you see that I have Layer 1, Layer 2, and Layer 3. It's good practice to name the layers in the Layer panel as you create them. If you have more than just a few layers, It can become very confusing as to what is on each layer. Also, if you are sharing or collaborating the file, the other person will also need to know what is on each layer in the Layers panel. In order to rename a layer, simply double-click on the layer name and type in a new name. Then hit the Enter key to accept the changes. I'll change Layer 1 to Graphic. So double-click where it says Layer 1, type in Graphic, and hit my Enter key. Layer 2 I'll rename Circle. And Layer 3 I will rename Text. If you want to make any changes to a layer, you can go to the top right and open up the drop-down menu. Here you will see options for, and in this case it says text because that's the active layer that I am on. You can go ahead and click on your options and you get layer options. In this dialog box you can rename your layer, change the color, which is this color right to the left of your thumbnail. You can also choose from multiple options like making this layer into a template, or printing it, or locking it. When you've made all your changes, you can hit OK, or if you don't want to make changes, you can hit cancel. You can also get to this layer options by double clicking on the empty space next to your layer name, and it will also open up your layer options. Now that we know how to make new layers, we're going to begin to move the different pieces of the icon onto their respective layers. Let's begin by moving the circle to its own layer. Open up the graphic layer by clicking on the small white arrow to the left of the thumbnail. In order to target the ellipse sublayer, click on the small circle to the right of the layer name. Notice that when you do that, a small blue box is shown next to the target and the object is highlighted by a bounding box on the artboard. In order to move the ellipse sublayer onto the circle layer, simply left click on the small blue box and then, without releasing your mouse button, drag it up to the circle layer. When you see a red box appear next to the target on the circle layer, you can release your mouse. If you open up your circle layer now, you will see that there is an ellipse surrounded now by a red bounding box on the artboard. Now let's do the same thing for the text sublayer. Click on the small circle to the right of where it says graphics/vector art. Click on the little circle. Holding down your mouse button, click on the little blue box and drag it up to your text layer. When your little box turns green, release your mouse. Then if you twirl open your text layer, you will now see that we moved the graphic/vector art sublayer onto the text layer. And if you target this particular text, you will see that it is underlined in green. Now you also have the ability to hide, lock, or delete layers within the Layers panel. If you wish to hide a layer or sublayer, all you need to do is click on the eyeball for that layer or sublayer. This will temporarily hide the layer. For example, if I click on the eyeball next to the text layer, you will see that the text layer is now hidden. To unhide a layer or sublayer, simply click on the box on the far left to unhide the layer or sublayer. It can also be useful at times to lock a certain layer or sublayer. In order to lock a layer or sublayer, simply click on the box next to the eyeball and you'll see a lock icon appear. For example, let's say I want the text layer to be locked so I cannot accidentally select it or make any changes to it. If I click next to the eyeball for the text layer, you will see a small lock icon. And if I try to select the text on the artboard, I am unable to do so. In order to unlock a layer or sublayer, simply click on the lock icon. If you want to delete a layer or sublayer, simply target the layer or sublayer by clicking on the layer name, then on the bottom of the Layers panel, click on the trash can. For example, if I want to delete the text layer, I will choose that layer by single-clicking on the layer name, and then clicking on the trash can at the bottom of the Layers panel. You'll then receive a dialog box asking if you want to delete the layer. If you click yes, the layer will be deleted. Now if you realize that you accidentally deleted the layer, you can restore the layer by using the keyboard shortcut Ctrl-Z or Command-Z on a Mac. And that is the end of this tutorial. I hope you found it useful. Have a good day.